Another activity that makes up a pretty big chunk of everyday life for people is sitting, and associated with sitting is getting up out of chairs and sitting back down in chairs. Remember that in this alignment, the muscles, ligaments, tendons, and discs in our low back are in the position of least stress. This is where we want them to be. So we want that curve to remain in the low back. The trouble that we tend to get into when we sit is people may sit down like this, but then as they sit for a while, that S curve turns into a C. And can you demonstrate that for a second? That slouch like that, which is bad for not only the low back, but the neck as well, because the head then goes forward and neck muscles start to overwork. So there are a couple of ways to maintain that curve in the low back. One, this is far from an ideal cushion, but it will at least get the idea that if you get a support behind your low back, then it becomes difficult to do that slouch, and you're more likely to maintain that good position. Another way of doing it is by scooting to the very front of the chair, getting your knees a little bit below your hips, and it becomes fairly easy to maintain that posture as well. There are also several commercially available products, like this wedge cushion, that also make it easier to sit in a good, upright, proper lumbar curve position. Now, having talked about sitting itself, let's talk about arising from sitting and sitting back down again. What we want to try and avoid is the launching ourselves upward in an out of control movement and the plopping back down into a chair in an out of control movement. We want to be in control of our body the whole time. So that's going to begin by scooting to the front of the chair, getting feet underneath you so that weight transfers to your feet, and then doing a proper hip hinge so that weight goes onto your feet and coming up. And that was the beautiful arising from a chair right there. You notice the curve stayed in the low back the way it should all the way through. So if you can get up one more time, and then the same thing going back down, you should, as you're going down and coming up, you should be able to stop at any point in that movement if you chose to, rather than, as I described, the way so many of us do, the plop, that once it starts, there's no stopping it until we land in the chair.